In the next 6 lessons, I'm going to look at part 2 of the IELTS speaking test. In this lesson now, we're going to focus on one topic area, which is describe a person, but we'll come to that later. First, a few quick pieces of information about part 2 of the speaking test. Part 2 of the test lasts between 3 and 4 minutes. Basically, you have a minute to prepare and you have to speak alone for 2 minutes. So most people think of this as a presentation or a short talk, you speaking alone and the examiner listening. This is an important part of the test because it's a good opportunity for the examiner to listen to you very carefully and see how good your language is. What happens then? Well, the examiner starts by giving you a task card, a piece of paper or card with a question written on it, a question task. And that task always begins with the word describe. So you're going to have to describe something. Then the examiner also gives you a pencil and a piece of paper for making notes. So you have your task card and you can make some notes. And the examiner will tell you you have 1 minute to make notes on the task. In that minute, you need to very quickly decide what you're going to talk about. If the question asks you to describe a person who you like, you need to make that decision very quickly. Who am I going to talk about? Think the first thing that comes into your head, make that decision, and then make a few notes about that person. Then when the 1 minute preparation time is finished, the technique is, my advice is, just follow the points on the task card. So if the main task is describe a person who you like, below that it will say, who is this person? How do you know them? Why do you like them? There'll be some bullet points below the main task. Use those bullet points to help you. You don't have to cover them all, but I recommend that you do because they help your structure. They give you something to say. So you go through saying what you can about those bullet points. Those are the only techniques that I can really suggest for what you should do in the exam. However, before the exam, I can make some good suggestions about how to prepare, because the good news for IELTS Speaking Part 2 is that they tend to repeat the same topics and very similar questions all the time. So for example, I've already mentioned about describe a person, that they often have questions about describing a place, an object, etc. There are some very common topic areas which I'll talk about later in this lesson, and I think you can prepare for them well with good language and good vocabulary. Final thing to say about that, and I will repeat this a bit later in the lesson, but vocabulary, ideas and giving a good detailed answer is the key to this part of the test. Don't worry too much about grammar, about linking. Those things you can't really prepare for, and if you try to prepare some good grammar and some good linking phrases, you're not going to answer the actual question. You're going to be so worried about your grammar that you forget to give the answer. So content is much more important than grammar and structure. I'll mention that again later in this lesson. And what I'll do now, as I've told you the techniques, we'll move on to looking at the preparation mainly of topics, vocabulary, ideas. In this part of the lesson we're going to look at topics, techniques, vocabulary and an example question for IELTS Speaking Part 2. Let's start with topics. There are 6 main topic areas that I think you should prepare for. All IELTS Speaking Part 2 questions begin with the word describe. It's a describing task, and here are the 6 main areas that you might have to describe in your test. Describe a person, a place, an object, an event, an activity, your favourites. So for example, if the question asks you to describe a teacher, that's in the first main area, describe a person. If the question is, or the task is, to describe a holiday that you went on, that would be under the main topic area of describe a place, etc. So most Speaking Part 2 questions fit into one of these 6 main topic areas. There's 1 or 2 that are different, but these are definitely the main areas. Some advice next. Prepare ideas and vocabulary for these topic areas. This is the best way to prepare. Don't prepare grammar or linking. If you're trying to just put grammatical structures or memorized linking phrases, if that's what you're preparing to try and put those into your 2-minute talk, that's not the best way to prepare for this. It's no good having lots of nice grammar and linking but no ideas. You should focus on answering the question well. Ideas and vocabulary are the secret to doing well in speaking part 2. More advice? Speak naturally and explain in detail. This is the same idea. It's all about ideas, vocabulary, giving detail to your answers. So it's about content, not structure. The examiner's not really listening to your structure here at all, not listening to your linking or how you organise your ideas. It's not so important. If you can just speak naturally and give a really nice detailed description in those 2 minutes, then you'll get a good score. Now we come to the main part of this lesson, which is to look at the topic area, describe a person. One of our 6 main topic areas that we need to prepare. And I've seen this question asked in different ways. If you look at the official Cambridge IELTS books or the other official IELTS materials, you'll see variations on this question, such as describe a teacher, a famous person, a friend, family member, child, someone who helps people, or someone who does something well. Those are examples that I've seen of this question asked in different ways. But all of those different tasks are really asking you to describe a person, which is our topic area for this lesson. And I think we can prepare ideas that could be used in any of those specific tasks, whether you are asked to describe a teacher, a famous person, or a child. You could use some of the same ideas, and that's what we're going to look at in the rest of this lesson. First, what are the bullet points below the question? What do they ask you to describe about this person? Well, if you just think in terms of the question words, this is what they usually ask. Who, what, where, when, how, why. For example, who is this person? They want you to describe who the person is, of course. What he or she does, when, how, or where you met, or if it's a famous person that you haven't met, how you know about this person. And finally, the last question is always a why question. For example, why you like this person, why you respect this person, why you think this person is important. If we can be ready for those description tasks and the bullet points, then we'll be well prepared for the test. Now I'm going to give you some preparation tips about this topic. First, think of a theme for any of the people that you might have to describe. Remember, friend, family member, famous person, child, etc. We need a theme that could be used to describe any of these people. I'll show you what I mean in a moment. When we have that theme, we're going to think of some easy adjectives. And then we're going to use a dictionary or the internet to search for better words and phrases to improve our description. Remember, these are preparation tips, not tips for in the exam. These are tips for you preparing at home, preparing for this topic. Let me show you what I mean by the theme now. Imagine we describe any of these people, friend, family member, famous person, child, teacher, etc. We can describe any of them as hard-working. So hard-working can be our theme for any of these descriptions. Then we can think of adjectives related to that, such as busy, active, but then with a bit of work we can find better words and phrases. One example of a better word, conscientious, and a nice phrase, someone you can count on. Now, these are not synonyms of hardworking. They're related adjectives and phrases. So you're not just looking for a list of synonyms. You're looking to create a description based on the theme of this person being hardworking. Let me show you what I've done with this theme. A hard-working person could be someone who is enthusiastic, energetic, studious, persistent, motivated, determined to succeed, someone who sees things through, which means they always finish things, a good team player, and someone who likes to challenge himself or herself. So I've got some good vocabulary building around this theme of the person being hardworking. One more example, if I take the word friendly, the theme of this person being friendly, we could have these words: kind, caring, generous, unselfish, big-hearted, supportive, down-to-earth, easygoing, always there when you need him or her, someone who cheers me up, a big or magnetic personality, someone who lights up the room. And notice here I'm starting to use some less common vocabulary, some good vocabulary that most people in their exam would not use. Now, once we've developed these themes, there's one final step in preparation that I think is really useful, which is to think of examples or stories to demonstrate each theme. If the theme is, my brother is hard-working, we could demonstrate that with an example. I remember when he used to get up at 5 a.m. to do some extra work before school. And I could keep talking about that example, make it into a longer story if necessary, if I've got time. If we look back at the list of people that we might be asked to describe in the test, we now have some good themes that we could use for all of these people. And maybe you've also thought of some examples or stories that you could use to support those themes. Don't worry if you haven't thought of the examples. I think even if you've just prepared the themes and some good adjectives, good vocabulary, that's a good start. You'll be well prepared and you can be confident going into the exam. Hopefully you'll be able to think quickly in the exam and think of examples to support those themes even if you haven't prepared them. But if you have more time at home, you could prepare an example or story for each of those people on the list to support the themes. But remember that you can't prepare for everything. You will need to adapt your ideas and improvise in the test. I'm just suggesting that before the test, you do your best to prepare some theme language, some good language for the main topic areas. And then all you can really do is practice. Lots of practice using tests and record yourself. Record yourself speaking for 2 minutes, trying to give an answer, trying to use some of your prepared theme language. But then when you've recorded yourself, use that recording, write it down and see what you can do to improve it. Could it have been better? Did you include all of the language that you prepared, your theme language? If you didn't, look at the areas that were weak and re-record yourself. Practice again. Keep going and you'll get better and better the more you do. And that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to do a real example question from one of the official Cambridge IELTS books. Here's the question that I'm going to try. Describe someone you know who does something well. You should say who this person is, how you know this person, what they do well, and explain why you think this person is so good at doing this. You've seen what I recommend now. You know the techniques that I recommend. First, the preparation of this topic. I've got a couple of good themes and some good vocabulary that I'll try to include. I will try to improvise and invent some examples to support those themes. And also the technique that I mentioned earlier in the lesson, I'm going to go step by step through the points on this task card, using them to help me structure what I say. And hopefully I'll be able to speak for 2 minutes, get through all the points, and use some of my good prepared language. Here we go. I'll start the 2 minutes now. I'm going to describe a friend of mine called James. James is an actor by profession. He's in his 30s, I think. He's tall, he's about my height, with dark hair and a friendly face. He's always smiling, and he cheers me up whenever I see him. I met James at university. He was my next door neighbour in my hall of residence in the first year of university. So on that first day when we were moving into our rooms, James introduced himself to me and we struck up a conversation and got to know each other. Then we became good friends. James, as I said, is an actor, and I think he's really good at that. He studied drama at university, and where I met him, and since then he's been working in theatre. He's done some small independent films, and he's trying to get his break in television or in more popular mainstream films. And I think he'll do it because for me, he seems, when I've been to see him in theatre productions or I've seen the short films that he's been in, he seems to be a really good actor to me. Why I think he's good? Well, I think it comes from his work ethic. He's a really hard worker. He's really persistent. He always said he wanted to be a successful actor. It's not an easy profession to become successful in, but he's persisted. He's really intense. He studies each role very carefully. He gets into character. I remember, for example, not being able to talk to him for about a week before one of his acting jobs because he was in character. He didn't want to lose focus. So he's really intense, and that's what I think makes him a great actor and why I think he'll be successful. That was the end of the 2 minutes, so I had to stop. I had more ideas. I could have said more about the hard work, personality. I could have talked about him being friendly and used some of my prepared themes, but you can see it's difficult. I was improvising. I was saying whatever came into my head, following the bullet points on the task card and doing my best to get at least some of that prepared language in there. I'll now write up what I said there, and I'll include it attached on the document next to this video so I can analyze what I wrote. I'll underline the good vocabulary that I did use, and you can have a look, have a read through and see the good words and phrases that I used in there, and maybe also think about what I could have added to make that description even better. To summarise then, in this lesson you've seen that I've given some very simple suggestions about exam technique. Quick decision in the preparation time, follow the points on the task card in the 2 minutes when you have to speak, and just try to say as much as you can about each one. But I've also given you a lot of advice about what you can do at home preparing before the exam. Topics, vocabulary, ideas, themes, and building around a theme, thinking of good examples. These will help you when you go in. And you've seen me give a full answer spontaneously, improvising an answer, trying to use some of the good vocabulary from the describe a person theme. And next to this lesson, you can see the script of that description attached on the worksheet. In this lesson, I'm going to look at IELTS Speaking Part 2 and the topic area, describe a place, the second of our main common topic areas for this part of the test. Remember, what we're trying to do in this preparation for IELTS Speaking Part 2 is work on good ideas, good vocabulary for the most common topic areas, the most common tasks for this part of the test. We're not working on grammar or linking. That will not help you in Speaking Part 2. It's all about good ideas and good vocabulary so that you respond to the task well and give a really good description. That's what will impress the examiner. In the previous lesson, I told you about the 6 main topic areas for Speaking Part 2. Describe a person, place, object, event, activity, and your favourites. We did describe a person in the first lesson, and now we're going to look at this topic, describe a place. I just want to remind you again, and I'll keep reminding you, that we're preparing ideas and vocabulary here, not grammar or linking. Anyway, let's go on to looking at the different types of question for this topic, describe a place. I've seen the following questions: describe a city you've visited, describe a city you would like to visit, describe somewhere you went on holiday, a historic place, a river, lake or sea, a journey, All of those are descriptions of places. And I think that we can probably prepare ideas for one description that will work for any of these questions. We might just have to change it a little bit, but with one description we could answer any of these 6. Another 3 that I've seen that are slightly different, asking you to describe a more specific place, are describe a shop, a restaurant, a street market. I'll talk about these as well in this lesson. So there's really 2 types of describe a place question. And if you get a describe a place question in your test, you'll probably be asked these simple things about that place. Which place it is, of course, you'll have to say the name of the place, where it is, what you did or can do there, and why you like it. Very simple questions to help you describe this place. These are the bullet points that you'll probably see on the task card, and you can follow those bullet points to help you give your description. Now, the preparation tip that I gave you in the first lesson is the same for this topic. Think of a theme for any place. Start with easy adjectives and search for better words or phrases. I'll show you what I mean by that. If we take the theme of an interesting place, easy adjectives to describe an interesting place could be fun, lively, etc. But if we search for better words and phrases, we can prepare a better description. So words like fascinating, unforgettable, or a phrase like the time flew by, meaning the time went very quickly. Let's look at this theme in a bit more detail. If we're describing an interesting or fun city, there are lots of good things we could say about it. It's lively, bustling, hectic, thriving, cosmopolitan, multicultural, fascinating, unique. It has a special atmosphere. Talk about the sightseeing or the entertainment in that city. You could say it was an unforgettable experience, that you enjoyed every minute. The time flew by. There were endless things to see and do, and the visit was over too quickly. All of these are great things to say. You don't need to mention all of them, of course. This is just good preparation. If you don't know any of these words or phrases, check them in a dictionary and see if you can use them in full sentences yourself. Let's look at another theme, the historic theme, just in case you have to describe an old place, a historic place. We could talk about the old buildings, the palaces, the statues, ancient things such as monuments, the landmarks, which means the important places in that city. Somewhere where great events took place in the past. You could talk about the connection to the past, the reminders of the past in that city. Everywhere you look, you see these reminders. The city is full of history. It has a rich cultural heritage. Some good vocabulary to use if you have to talk about somewhere old. Finally, what if we had the restaurant, shop, or market? Let's take the friendly theme to describe a restaurant. Imagine you're saying that you went to a restaurant that was really nice because it was so friendly. You could say it was welcoming, inviting, warm. The waiters maybe or the staff were approachable, polite, thoughtful, attentive. It had a great atmosphere. The people there, the staff, made you feel at home. The service was excellent. Nothing was too much to ask. It was an unforgettable evening. Again, we're not giving a list of synonyms here, just synonyms of the word friendly. We're trying to develop a theme around this word friendly, thinking of other things that could be related. In this case, with the restaurant, all of these other adjectives and phrases that are good for describing a friendly place. And as I said in the previous lesson, the final step in preparation, I think, is to think of examples or stories to demonstrate each theme. For example, if we've been talking about the city and we've said the city was interesting, let's demonstrate that by saying what was interesting, what we did there. Give a real example. We visited famous landmarks and attractions such as, and give the names. Or we could say, we lost track of time because. We lost track of time means we forgot what time it was because we were enjoying ourselves so much. So give real examples like that. If we take the restaurant as another example, the restaurant was friendly. Example or story, the waiters really made us feel special. They even surprised us with a birthday cake for our friend whose birthday it was. So that's the final step. If you can think of some examples, that will really help support your ideas, and it will help you to keep speaking as well. It's very easy to speak for a long time if you've got a real example or story. Looking back then at our list of questions for the describe a place topic, I think we've now got some good themes and some examples for all of these. We could probably use those themes for any of these particular questions. And in a moment I'll show you how I answer using these themes. I'll give you 2 example answers using the themes that we've prepared. But remember, you can't prepare for everything. You will need to adapt your ideas and improvise in the test. And I'll show you that as well just a bit later in this lesson when I adapt some ideas for a second answer. When you've prepared some good vocabulary ideas for these different topics, when you've got your themes and some examples, the only thing left to do is practice. When you practice speaking, I recommend that you record yourself, because then you can write down what you said and you can analyze it and you can try to improve it. You can check whether you included all of the good vocabulary that you prepared. Sometimes people prepare things but then forget to use them. So check whether you used it. Check whether you could add more words and better phrases to improve what you said. Finally then, I'm going to look at 2 example questions and give my 2 example answers. The first example question is, describe a river, lake or sea which you like. You should say what the river, lake or sea is called, where it is, what the land near it is like, and explain why you like this river, lake or sea. I'm going to start my description in a moment, but before I do, I'll just tell you that this question is easier than it looks. I'm going to choose the river in London, which allows me to do a nice easy city description. Here we go then, I'll start the 2 minutes now. I'm going to describe the best known river in England, the River Thames. The River Thames is in the south of England and it's famous because it flows right through the centre of London. It goes winding through all of the most iconic, famous tourist attractions and landmarks of the city. For example, it goes past the London Eye, the Houses of Parliament with Big Ben, and it goes under Tower Bridge, probably the most famous bridge in London. So the land around this river, or on either side of this river, is hectic, thriving city centre London. It's right in the heart of the city, and of course it's a cosmopolitan mix of cultures, business, tourism, all around. It's where everyone goes to do sightseeing in the centre of the capital, and it's got a lot of the history and heritage of London based around that area in close proximity to the river itself. The reason I like this river, the River Thames, is because it's such an iconic location. It's a backdrop to these great landmarks of the city, the historic buildings and famous tourist sites in the city. And I've got good memories of being there on a New Year's Eve one year recently. In London, New Year's Eve celebrations are all focused on the river, with the river and some of the landmarks as the backdrop to a big fireworks show. And so the river's all lit up and there's a spectacular fireworks display put on, and lots of tourists and local people all watch it there together. And that was really an unforgettable experience, and the river was central to it. That's the end of the 2 minutes. I've had to stop there. I've tried to use as many of my theme ideas as I could, and you can analyse how well I did by reading the script on the worksheet attached next to this video. Now I'll try to do the same thing for a second example question, and I'll try to use and adapt the same ideas that you've just heard, with the difference that this question will be about a restaurant. Here's the question. Describe a restaurant that you enjoyed going to. You should say where the restaurant was, why you chose this restaurant, what type of food you ate, and explain why you enjoyed eating in this restaurant. Here we go then. I'll start the 2 minutes now. I'm going to describe a restaurant that I went to quite recently for the birthday party of a friend of mine. The restaurant that we went to was right in the heart of London, overlooking the River Thames. It was quite near to Tower Bridge, the famous bridge in London. And we had a great view from our vantage point above the river. We had a great view of all the famous London landmarks in that area. My friend chose the restaurant because of this location, because of the great backdrop. Out of the window of the restaurant we could see all of these iconic places in London, and he thought it would be a good place to have a celebration, a place that would be memorable for everybody. But also we'd heard that the food in this restaurant was delicious, and that the staff were warm and welcoming, and the service and the quality was all round really good. The type of food that we ate there, well, it was a fusion restaurant, I think they called it, which meant that there was a variety of food choices from all over the world. There were Mexican food choices, Mediterranean, Persian, but also hamburgers and pizzas, that kind of thing. I think I actually had a pizza with various toppings on it myself, and it was really nice. It was a fantastic meal. The reason I enjoyed eating in this restaurant, firstly, it was a great chance to get together with friends and chat about what we'd been up to and catch up with some of my good friends. But also the restaurant itself really did make the night special. The service was fantastic. The waiters and the staff really made us feel at home. They were thoughtful and attentive to all of our needs, and we were really surprised at the end when they brought us a cake to celebrate my friend's birthday. Okay, I've had to stop there again. I've hopefully used some of my ideas about the city description, but also about the friendly restaurant that we prepared earlier in those themes. Again, you can analyse how well I did by looking at the script on the worksheet attached next to this lesson. And that's the end of the lesson. You can download the attached worksheet to see those scripts, and in the next lesson we'll do something similar with the different topic, describe an object.